We've got another chair in the shop that needs some repair. This is a beautiful Nichols Stone anniversary chair that's been lacquered black with the natural maple arms, and there's no broken parts to it, which is great. We're just going to disassemble it and reassemble and reglue it because, as you can see, the arms are a little bit loose, the back is popping off, and a couple of the legs are loose. So we're going to disassemble this chair, reglue it using Hyde glue, and then go through and do some touch-up work where some of the black lacquer has worn off or been scratched. So in this video, there's lots to learn on how to disassemble and reassemble a chair, as well as doing some touch-ups. Despite lots of effort using the vinegar as well as the clamps, 3 out of the 4 of the legs have pulled out. This one is solid. No matter what I do, it's not softening up any of that Hyde glue that's in there. So I'm not going to stress it, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to break the leg. I don't want to break any of these stretchers. What I can do, however, is using the spreader clamp, I can spread these legs out enough that I can actually get down into the hole and actually fill that hole up with some Hyde glue and then clamp it all back together again without damaging the chair or loosening the integrity of this leg. The top came apart very easy. As you saw, the crest rail came off, the sides came off, and these spindles are all very tight. So I'm not going to spend any time trying to take those apart. So now we're going to move on and get this thing glued back together again. Before we do the glue up on these chairs, what we need to do is clean up all the old glue, because new glue will not stick to old glue. Now, Hyde glue will dissolve itself into the existing, but I want to make sure that it's have a good clean surface to work from when we apply that new set of glue. So I'm just using a file, and I'm going to come across and just clean up all the old glue that might be here. And there's not a lot, especially on these dowels. There's some right here, but we'll clean that off, and I'm not sure what kind of glue that is. It could be a Hyde glue. It's kind of like colored. I've never seen anything like that before, but we'll get that cleaned off. And we'll do that to all the pieces that we took out. We'll also clean out all the holes before we apply our new set of Hyde glue. So we've cleaned up all of the dowel ends. Now we're going to work on the actual back of the chair. And what I want to show you is that's how much glue the manufacturer put in the chair. And that explains why so much of the so many chairs fall apart, is because the manufacturer wants to avoid squeeze out, because that means cleanup. But that's just not a lot of glue, and I'm not the least bit surprised as to why chairs fail. But we're going to pop that stuff out, and I'm going to do some research. I have a friend that worked for one of the furniture manufacturers out in Gardner, Mass. And I'm not familiar with that type of glue. And I'm going to ask him what that glue is. So, Bobby, if you're watching, let me know what kind of glue that is. So when I chipped out the glue, I actually saved some and I put them in this little container. So what I'm going to do is, until I find out what it is, I want to find out what dissolves it. Because if I encounter this in future chairs, I want to know what's going to loosen up those joints. So I'm going to take a little bit of this, do a test, put it in some vinegar, see if that loosens it up. And I'll try some other stuff as well too, maybe some water, maybe some heat, until I find out what that solution is. But this is going to be this is a new one on me. I want to find out what that is, and as soon as I know, I'll make sure I share it with you. At some point in time, there were glides on the bottom of these chairs. The only thing left now is the nails. So I'm going to pull these nails out, and then I will add some new nylon glides once it's done. But definitely going to take these nails out so I can put some new glides on it. Just like the crest rail as well as the arms, we need to clean those up. We also need to clean up these spindles as well, because there's definitely some glue on there. And then these side spindles, they're actually black lacquered before they were installed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skin back the black lacquer that's on here, get it down to bare wood, and then hopefully we'll get a better glue connection by doing that. So I'm just going to go through and, using a wood file, just go through and clean up the old glue. And I'm being gentle, because what I don't want to do is change the shape of the dowel. I just want to do enough to get to get back to bare wood so that we get a good glue connection. We're now ready for the glue up, and I did a dry fit before off camera to make sure they were going to go together, and I tested where my clamps were going to be. And if you remember, we couldn't get all 4 legs out of the base of the chair, but what I have been able to do is kind of spring up the other 3, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot Hyde glue down into the dowel holes that are there, and I'm going to use a little syringe that will get me in there. It allows me to kind of fill up that gap, or fill up that hole with glue. It's actually big enough that I can actually fit the nozzle of the glue bottle in there. And we'll put enough in so that we get good glue squeeze out. But then what I also want to do is get glue onto the tendons of the legs. Nice. And now we just need to pop that front one off so I can get some glue down inside there. Beautiful. So I've got a much smaller hole, so I'm going to use my syringe. And these are just syringes that I bought online that are specifically for glue, and I can put a link to them in the description below if folks are interested. They say that they're one use, but if you clean them out, you can get quite a few glue connections out of it. As I mentioned, I'm using Hyde glue, and you'll see folks using all types of glue, but the best thing for furniture repair is to use Hyde glue, because then it can be reversed. And that's beneficial for future generations. And if you're wondering what glues to use, whether you use Hyde glue or the PVA like the Titebond 2 or Titebond 3 glue, or use an epoxy, I'll post a link up above so that you can see an example of a video that I did that talks about the 3 types of glues that you can use and when you would use them. All right. After a little bit of work, we got the chair in the clamps. We have clamps across the crest rail under the seat. We also have some pipe clamps that are applying pressure from the arms down to the seat. And then I have weights on the seat of the chair to be able to apply pressure down because we had a glue connection from the dowel legs up to the seat. We'll now let this sit 24 hours and then we'll move on to the touch-ups. Now for the touch-ups. We're going to use a 2-pound cutter shellac with some black pigment to go through and touch up all these nicks and scratches that are in the chair. We're going to start at the legs and the stretchers down at the bottom. That's the least obvious place. That way we'll be able to determine whether or not our process of doing the touch-up is working and whether or not it actually makes them disappear. It's going to take a couple of coats as we apply the shellac, and with shellac it dries within about 10 minutes, so we can then add second and third applications of it and actually start to see those scratches and nicks and dents disappear. We're on to the third application of the shellac, and those nicks are definitely disappearing for us. So using the artist brush, we just keep going through and do our light touch-ups across the base of the chair and then across the stretchers. We'll then come across with some 4/0 steel wool just to knock down the sheen from the shellac and have it blend in with the rest of the finish of the chair. In addition to the legs of the chair, another place you'll see a lot of nicks and dents is going to be the backs of the backsplats. And that's probably because the chair has been bumped up against furniture or up against a chair rail. So using the exact same process with the shellac, we'll apply 2 or 3 coats and make those blemishes disappear. We're going to use the exact same process now on the crest rail of the chair. It's the 2-pound cutter shellac with the black pigment in it. We're going to go through and we'll apply multiple coats here and just go across with an artist brush and touch each of them up. By using the shellac, we're going to be able to get multiple coats on here as long as we wait for it to dry, which takes probably about 10 or 15 minutes. And then we're going to apply that second coat. The other thing is with the top of the chair crest rail here, there's a natural break at the back and at the front where it concaves. And I'm going to use that to my advantage and bring the tinted shellac right out to those edges. And that way any sheen difference won't be able to be seen. Now, once we're done, I will go across it with some 4/0 steel wool just to take any high sheen out of it. But we're going to go through, we'll apply multiple coats, and we'll eventually, hopefully, get to make these nicks and scratches all disappear. All right, we've gone through now, and we've put 2 or 3 applications of shellac on here. And as you can see, most of the blemishes have disappeared. I do need to do some work here to clean up that back edge, but for the most part, it's coming out pretty well. I'm gonna let this sit for a little bit, let it dry, and then I'm gonna come back with either a really fine Scotch-Brite pad or 4/0 steel wool and just buff the sheen out a little bit to get it to match the rest of the chair. And this repair is complete. The crest rail was loose, the arms were loose, we took that all apart, re-glued it all back together again, and then we went through and did a series of touch-ups across the top of the crest rail, down on the legs, and a little bit across the seat as well. But now this chair is ready to go back to the customer. Thanks for watching A.G. Johnson & Son Furniture Restoration. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing by clicking below.